Hello and welcome to the survey associated with the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee Urban Planning Students Project to create a sustainability plan for the city of Pewaukee. My name is Forrest Elliott. In light of the COVID-19 health crisis that is currently ongoing, we were unable to hold the meeting that we were going to hold on the subject, where we brought together different stakeholders to gather feedback and ideas related to sustainability in the city of Pewaukee. In lieu of that, we are obviously going to be doing this, which is now a digital survey which we are distributing to you and other people in the city of Pewaukee who might take an interest in creating the sustainability plan. A few things before we start. The items that are presented here are not exhaustive. They are just a few of the different ideas in several different subsections which we decided that we would like your opinion and feedback on. Again, if you have different ideas, other comments, if you believe we left something out, or if you think that there are potential problems and complications or things that we did not consider, please, by all means, let us know. Feel free to email us or include it in the comments in the survey. Also, because this is a digital survey, feel free to share it with others living and working in the city of Pewaukee, not just those which we originally intended to invite, but feel free to distribute it to others. The more the merrier. In this first section, we're going to be discussing housing and really residential districts in the city of Pewaukee. We have a few general goals which we believe align with the strategic goals of the city of Pewaukee. We believe that there should be a diversity of housing options for those who want to live and work in the city of Pewaukee. We obviously want to encourage neighborhoods that are livable and retain property value and attractive to people who would like to live in the city of Pewaukee. We want to provide and maintain access to open space, which the city of Pewaukee already does a fantastic job of. And while we recognize that the city of Pewaukee is an outer ring suburb that is a little less dense and a little more rural in nature, we would like to increase walkability and bikeability and the ability for somebody to live in the city of Pewaukee and not necessarily rely on their car. Our first idea and suggestion relies around the idea of reducing parking minimums in multifamily districts. Currently, in RM1, RM2, and RM3 districts, each residential unit is required to have at least 2.5 200 square foot off-street parking spaces, of which at least 2 must be located in the garage. These fairly high requirements can have multiple different effects. For one, requiring this much parking, specifically covered parking, can mean that certain streets, such as Saddlebrook Drive, in other words, very extremely attractive residential street zoned multifamily in the city of Pewaukee, can come to be dominated by garage fronts and driveways instead of porches or windows. There are a few different reasons why high parking minimums can be detrimental to residential neighborhoods. For one, it can actually discourage construction of apartment buildings or other necessary housing, as it can become pretty expensive for developers to provide that much parking, specifically covered parking in a garage. Secondly, as I mentioned before on Saddlebrook Drive, street fronts can become to be dominated by garage doors and driveways. Again, there can be a lot of empty and unused parking in all of this required parking, and all this parking can be too much hardscaped or impermeable surface, which is bad for stormwater management. There's a few possible directions the city of Pewaukee could go on an issue like this. For one, the city of Brookfield ties the parking minimums actually to the number of bedrooms with a set maximum. In this scenario, the developer would not be discouraged from producing studio or one-bedroom apartments, as now, in the city of Pewaukee, a studio or one-bedroom apartment would still be required to have 2.5 parking spaces. Another way to go is just to generally reassess and reduce the parking minimums in multifamily districts below the 2.5. Or it's possible for the city of Pewaukee to continue with the status quo if it's not perceived as a problem. The second idea is we think that the city of Pewaukee should find a way to make it easier for mixed-use buildings to be built by right. Essentially, in the city of Pewaukee, there's no real zoning code or zoning district that allows by right a developer or applicant to build a modern mixed-use development with first-floor retail and apartments above, as you've seen all throughout the Milwaukee area being constructed in the last decade. In B2 and B3 districts, residential quarters for the owner or proprietor is a conditional use. In B4 districts, there's a conditional use for residences when in conjunction with the principal use and not more than 50% of the floor area. Really, if an applicant wanted to create a building with retail on the first floor and apartments above it, they would likely have to do a planned unit development in the current zoning code. Here's an example of a building constructed by the Mendel Group at the corners in Brookfield with first floor retail and apartments above. It's probably familiar to most of you. We think that, again, it should be easier for these to be built by right. For one, it creates a diversity of housing options. Many younger people, including those without families, have a preference for a denser urban form or a one-bedroom apartment. It also helps the city of Pewaukee become competitive with others in the region who allow this. There's a couple different directions we think that the city of Pewaukee could go with this. Perhaps the city of Pewaukee could add residential use as a permitted or really a conditional use in one or more of the business districts. As a conditional use, the city would then still maintain some design control. It's possible to create a new zoning district which would allow for specifically this type of building, or of course there's the status quo where you could continue with the planned unit development route. Some other quick suggestions that we have in residential districts is to permit apiculture or beekeeping in residential district, which is good for food security, education, and of course pollination. We think it'd also be beneficial to develop a rain barrel program, an education sort of outreach program for home gardeners and landscaping. This could be modeled after MMSD's rain barrel program. Of course, another out there little idea that's a little further out there is the potential for a rebate that the city participates in for the replacement of toilets installed before 1991, which are extremely wasteful and water intensive. If the city could participate in some sort of a rebate program, that would help contribute to water usage in the city of Pewaukee. Thank you again for listening to this section, and please answer the survey questions below before proceeding on to the next video.